just consider, why is it stressful to take a trade? Are you afraid of losing that money? Are you unsure because you haven't tested the strategy? Are you
Welcome to the Think Profit Podcast. All information in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not financial or health advice.
Hey, Hugh. So I've got a really interesting question from a trader. She's asking sometimes, she knows what she should do, but she doesn't take her trades because she feels a lot of stress and a lot of concern about what's going to happen. Am I going to, take another loser? And she's got a difficult job that takes a lot of her time. So and effort and energy. So the question is, what can I do to reduce the stress of trading? So any thoughts on that about how to reduce stress for traders?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? I mean, that's something that's pretty
Yeah.
natural. So, uh, number one, don't stress about that. Number two, I would say, like, if your job is getting in the way, then maybe you want to trade a trading system that's less leads less needs less babysitting, or needs less inputs. And that could help you, take some of the pressure off. And then the third and final point I would say is, um, just consider, why is it stressful to take a trade? Are you afraid of losing that money? Are you unsure because you haven't tested the strategy? Are you nervous because you don't think it's going to work the same in live as it does in back testing? So, those are things to really consider, and sit down and, like, write it out. Like, write out, before you're going to take a trade, write out, why are you nervous? And that's going to be the peak point at when you're feeling that nervousness, right? And when you can go back to that later on, you can see, okay, this is why I'm nervous about this, and what can I do about it? So, I mean, that's what I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's those are good points. I think that can work. Um you can also like set a routine. So where
Mm,
you might go for a run or, walk the dog or something, and then after that point of or going to the gym, and then after that point, you kind of feel like, endorphins or whatever, and then you sit down and you do your trade decisions, right?
mhm.
Or relax with a hypnosis or a brainwave entrainment, and then sit down and something where you do, wake up in the morning, I do this, I make my breakfast, and then I check my charts, or I get home from work, I take the dog for a walk, I go to the gym, come home, and then I look at my charts and make my trading decisions. Like that's what I would do. Like if I lived on the West Coast in the US, I would certainly be making my trading decisions, in the evening. And if I lived in like Thailand or something or Bali, I would be doing my decisions in the afternoon, right? Um, yeah, so it just depends on where you're at and how you trade or whatever. But the other thing to consider is,
Mm.
you know, I think you touched on it. Like, why are you feeling that way? If you're writing out your thoughts, like your emotions, almost like a trading journal or a life journal that includes trading in it, that's really useful because you can point to certain things and you'll see patterns, and you'll notice, oh, whenever this happens in my life, I tend to do this or whatever. I think it's really useful to have that, to go back and have a look at over time and see, what do I, how do I cope with these stressors? What continually happens? What's my approach? And another thing I was thinking is, I don't know if it sounds a bit weird if you haven't done this before, but you can, when you're doing your back testing, you can like pick random points in your back testing and stop and then write a journal entry about, imagine that this is your account and how would you feel?
Mm,
What would your thoughts be? You know what I mean? Okay,
mhm.
you stop after, 7 losers in a row, and you start writing, okay, what would, you know what I mean? Like how am I feeling about this? How am I feeling about my strategy in the markets and trading in general and my success or failure or whatever? How do I feel about this? That could also help. But the number one thing is obviously to reduce your risk. Like
Mm.
a lot of traders will admit that when they reduce their risk, they got way better at execution. And it's simply because at a certain point you reduce your risk so much, it almost doesn't make sense to not follow your rules. So like when you have those situations, when you have really, really great profitable trades, and you're not supposed to get out of them, but you get out of them anyway because you got so much profit you can't help yourself, right?
Mhm.
That doesn't happen when you have these really low risk trades because even the biggest winner is like not that impressive. So it's a way to kind of get to the point where you're really good at executing, and then maybe from there you can sort of ratchet it up. So maybe you're risking, a quarter of a percent. So instead of risking 2%, you risk 0.25%. So a quarter of a percent, and then over time you ramp that up to 3/4, and then 1, and so forth. And that might be a way to kind of desensitize yourself to the feelings of, oh no, I've got this big profitable trade, or I've had all these losers, or whatever. That's another approach. It could work.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. All right. Thanks, Walter.
Thank you.